The first thing I saw was my name. Not on the mailbox, not on the door, on the mortgage. Primary borrower, Evelyn Carter. Purchase price, $420,000, primary residence. I was standing in my own kitchen when I read that, holding my phone, staring at an address in Charleston, South Carolina, an address I had never seen before, an address connected to a house my husband bought 3 years ago, using my inheritance. The house wasn't the part that broke me, it was the word primary, because I was standing inside what I believed was our primary residence. So who was living in that one? My husband disappeared 2 days later. But that's not where this starts. It starts 6 months earlier. The day my mother died. Grief makes you vulnerable. People don't talk about that enough. They talk about sadness. They talk about crying. They don't talk about how grief makes you easy to move, easy to guide, easy to convince. When my mother passed, she left me $480,000. She had spent 30 years building that savings. Careful, meticulous, disciplined. She used to say, never depend on anyone to build your security. I remember laughing at that because I was married. I had Daniel. We were a team. Daniel handled the financial paperwork. He always had. He was calm under pressure, organized, efficient. When the estate funds cleared, he sat beside me at the dining table with spreadsheets open. We should reinvest most of this, he said softly. Real estate is the safest move. I trusted him. I didn't even read the documents carefully. Why would I? He was my husband. 6 months later, he started traveling more often. At first, it made sense. He worked in development consulting. New contracts, out-of-state clients, long weekends, occasional missed calls. He always returned with stories, small details, hotel names, flight delays, nothing suspicious. Just enough information to feel transparent. The first real crack was a simple letter, white envelope, First Federal Bank. I almost threw it away. We were paperless. But something about the logo made me pause. Inside was a statement. Mortgage payment due. Property address, Charleston, SC. Borrower, Daniel Carter. Co-borrower, Evelyn Carter. Outstanding balance, $417,892. I remember sitting down slowly. My body felt heavy, like gravity had changed. There are moments in life when your brain refuses to compute. This was one of them. When Daniel came home that night, I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I handed him the letter. He looked at it, then at me, and he smiled, not nervously, not guiltily, just calmly. It's an investment property, he said. I was going to surprise you. A surprise, with my inheritance, signed in my name without my knowledge. Why is it listed as primary residence? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Tax strategy. He always had an answer. Always. That was his gift. Control through calm. I wanted to believe him. Because believing him meant my life wasn't collapsing. So I nodded, pretended to accept it, pretended to trust him. But something inside me shifted. Quietly, irreversibly. 2 nights later, I couldn't sleep. I opened his laptop. Not to spy, just to confirm. That's what I told myself, just to confirm. The login page for his email was already open, and he hadn't logged out. There was a folder, archived, labeled Project Magnolia. Magnolia. I remembered that word. It was the name of the street on the mortgage document. Inside were receipts, furniture deliveries, utility bills, insurance forms, school registration documents. School. Then I saw a photo attached to an email. A backyard, a birthday cake, a little boy, dark hair, brown eyes, standing beside Daniel with his arm around him. The subject line read, Ethan turns 7. My husband doesn't have a son. We never had children. That was one of the quiet griefs of our marriage. Something we never fully talked about. Something that made my inheritance feel even more important. Security for the future we didn't build. I kept scrolling. Medical bills. Pediatric clinic invoices. Emergency contact form. Father's name, Daniel Carter. Mother's name, Rachel Monroe. My stomach dropped. This wasn't an affair. Affairs are messy, impulsive, hidden in shadows. This was structured, scheduled, financed, documented. And then I saw something worse. Transfer confirmations from my inheritance account to the Magnolia mortgage. Every month, for 3 years, he didn't just lie, he built. using me as the foundation. I confronted him the next morning. I expected denial, anger, panic. Instead, he looked tired, like someone whose secret had simply expired. "It's complicated," he said quietly. That sentence, those two words, they destroy marriages. "Who is Ethan?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. He walked to the window, looked outside, and said something that changed everything. "He's my responsibility, not my son, not my mistake, my responsibility." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He looked at it, and for the first time in 12 years of marriage, I saw fear in his eyes, real fear. He stepped outside to take the call. I watched through the glass, his posture stiff, voice low, urgent. When he came back in, he didn't look at me. "I need to leave for a few days," he said. "Work emergency." Of course, always work. That was the last time I saw my husband. He never came back. No note, no goodbye, no explanation. His phone disconnected the next morning. His office said he had resigned. The Magnolia House went silent. And that's when I realized something far worse than betrayal. I wasn't the only wife. I wasn't even the real one. Because 3 days later, Rachel Monroe showed up at my door, and she thought I was dead. Rachel Monroe did not look like a villain. She looked exhausted. Hair pulled back in a loose knot, no makeup, hands shaking slightly as she held her purse. There was a bruise on her wrist, faded, yellow at the edges. She stared at me like she was seeing a ghost. "You're Evelyn," she whispered. I nodded. She blinked twice. And then she said the sentence that rewired my brain. "He told me you died." I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at her. "Died," I repeated. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. She swallowed. "Car accident, 3 years ago. He said it destroyed him." 3 years. The same year the Magnolia House was purchased. I stepped aside. "Come in." We sat across from each other at the same dining table where Daniel convinced me to reinvest my inheritance. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. She looked around the house slowly. "He said this place was sold after." She couldn't finish the sentence. "After my death." "How long have you known him?" I asked. 5 years. 5. So I was alive for 2 full years while he was mourning me somewhere else. "And Ethan?" I asked softly. Her face changed instantly. Protective, warm, terrified. "He's 7. I did the math. 7. Which meant Daniel had started that second life while we were still trying to have a baby. While I was going through fertility treatments. While I was blaming my body. My chest tightened. Not jealousy, not even anger, just something hollow. Like the floor had dropped out beneath history itself. "He told me you were the love of his life," Rachel continued. "And losing you changed him." I almost laughed. The cruelty of it was artistic. He didn't erase me. He weaponized me. "Did you ever see a death certificate?" I asked. She shook her head. "He said it was too painful to talk about. I didn't push." Of course she didn't. Grief shuts down questions. He knew that. He understands vulnerability. He studies it, uses it. "How did you meet him?" I asked. "At a housing development conference in Atlanta." Development, consulting, travel, everything aligned too neatly. "He said Magnolia was temporary," she added quietly. "That once he felt ready, we'd move somewhere new. Start fresh, with my money." There was a long silence between us. 2 women, 1 man, 2 completely different realities, both of them carefully engineered. "Why are you here?" I finally asked. Her eyes filled instantly. "Because he's missing." The word hit differently this time. Missing, not left, not traveling, missing. "He hasn't answered my calls in 4 days," she continued. "He didn't pick Ethan up from school on Friday." My stomach turned. "He told me he had a work emergency." She stared at me. "So he was here." "Yes, he was here. The day he disappeared. We were quiet again." Then she reached into her bag, pulled out a folder, bank statements, printed emails, copies of mortgage paperwork. I recognized my signature immediately. Forged, close, but not mine. "He said the Magnolia House was in both our names," she whispered. "But when I went to the bank, her voice broke. It's only his. And yours." I closed my eyes. Of course. He never intended her to have legal claim. She was living in a house funded by my inheritance under paperwork she never saw. "He transferred money out of our joint account last month," she added. $40,000. 40,000. The same amount withdrawn from the inheritance account 3 weeks ago. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. This wasn't just double life deception. This was liquidation, movement, preparation. "He's not coming back," I said quietly. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. "You don't know that." I held her gaze. "I do. Because Daniel doesn't panic. He plans. Every move is layered. Every exit calculated. If he vanished from both lives simultaneously, it wasn't chaos. It was intention." Rachel's hands started trembling. "What do we do?" There it was, the question beneath everything. Not what did he do, not why. What do we do? I should have hated her. She lived in the house bought with my mother's money. She held the child I couldn't have. She believed my husband's grief was real. But looking at her, I didn't see a rival. I saw another victim. "I need to ask you something," I said carefully. "Has anyone else been asking about him?" Her face went pale. "What do you mean?" "Anyone strange, calls, visits, questions." She hesitated, then nodded. "Two men came by last week, said they were private investigators." My pulse quickened. What did they want? They asked about his travel patterns, financial transfers, if he'd mentioned offshore accounts. "Offshore." "He told me they were routine auditors," she whispered. "But they didn't look like auditors." No, they wouldn't. A slow realization settled between us. Cold, precise. Daniel wasn't just running two families, he was running something bigger, something that required disappearing. Rachel looked at me with something new in her eyes, not confusion, not grief, recognition. "He used us," she said. "Yes, he did. But the question wasn't how. It was why." My phone buzzed, unknown number. We both stared at it. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I answered. Silence. Then a man's voice. Low, measured. "Mrs. Carter?" "Yes." Pause. "You need to stop looking for your husband." My throat tightened. "Who is this?" Another pause. "He's not who you think he is." The line went dead. Rachel's eyes were wide. "What did they say?" I didn't answer immediately, because something inside me had just shifted again. This wasn't about betrayal anymore. This was about survival. I looked at her, at the woman who thought I was dead, at the child upstairs in Magnolia who thought Daniel was his father, at the inheritance drained, at the missing 40,000, at the investigators, at the warning. And for the first time since opening that envelope, I wasn't afraid. I was awake. "If he thinks we're going to sit quietly," I said slowly, "he doesn't know us at all." We didn't call the police. Not yet, because the voice on the phone wasn't random. It wasn't chaotic. It was controlled, which meant this wasn't new. Rachel stayed. Not because she trusted me, because she had nowhere else to go. By midnight, Magnolia didn't feel like a house anymore. It felt like evidence. We started with what we had. Laptop, bank statements, old emails, tax documents. Daniel was meticulous, too meticulous, files categorized. Passwords changed monthly. Two-factor authentication on everything. A man protecting something or hiding it. At 2:17 a.m., Rachel found it. A folder labeled, "Property Nevada." Neither of us had ever been to Nevada. Inside, LLC registration documents, digital signatures, wire transfers totaling $2.8 million, not 40,000. Millions. The company name, Carter Development Holdings, registered to Daniel Carter. And someone else, a name neither of us recognized, Michael Reeves. "Who is that?" Rachel whispered. I didn't answer. Because the birth date listed under Daniel's information was wrong, off by 3 years. We kept digging. Another folder, encrypted, hidden behind outdated tax returns. When it opened, my hands went cold. Passport scans, 3 of them, same face. Different names, Daniel Carter, Michael Reeves, and Andrew Cole, 3 identities, 3 states. 3 separate incorporation records. This wasn't an affair. It wasn't even fraud. It was construction. He was building something. Rachel covered her mouth. "He used my social security number for a business filing." My stomach dropped. "What?" She nodded, scrolling. "It's listed as a secondary guarantor," without her knowing, which meant when things collapsed, she would take the fall. We heard something then, upstairs, a soft thud. We froze. The house was supposed to be empty. Rachel's son was at her sister's. We were alone. Another sound, a door, slowly closing. I grabbed the fireplace poker. Not because I thought it would help, but because instinct is louder than logic. At 2:30 a.m., we moved together. Up the stairs, every step louder than it should have been. The hallway light was on. Neither of us left it on. The office door open. The laptop screen was dark, but the external hard drive gone. Rachel's breathing turned sharp. He was here. No, not was, is. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered immediately. You weren't supposed to find that. Same voice, calm, almost disappointed. Where are you? I demanded. A soft exhale on the other end. You really don't understand who you were married to. Behind me, Rachel gasped. At the window, headlights, parked across the street, engine running. Stop digging, the voice continued. For your own protection. Click. The headlights didn't move, didn't flash, just waited. Rachel grabbed my arm. What do we do? I stared at the car, at the house, at the missing drive, at the 3 passports, at the $2.8 million, at the forged signatures, at the investigators asking about offshore accounts. Daniel wasn't running from us. He was running from someone else, and whoever that was had just realized we were awake. The headlights turned off. Darkness swallowed the street. The engine finally pulled away. Slow, unhurried, confident. Rachel started crying silently. Not loud, not hysterical. Just the sound of a person realizing their entire life was collateral. I walked back to the office, sat in Daniel's chair, and opened the drawer he always kept locked. It wasn't locked anymore. Inside, a single envelope with my name on it in his handwriting. Rachel whispered from the doorway. Are you going to open it? I looked at the envelope, at the weight of it, at the years it represented. No, I said quietly, not yet. Because for the first time since Daniel disappeared, I wasn't reacting. I was thinking. If he left this behind, it wasn't an accident. It was a message, and I wasn't ready to read it until I understood what game we were really in. Outside, a siren echoed in the distance. Not close, not far. Just enough to remind us this was bigger than marriage, bigger than betrayal, bigger than Magnolia. And somewhere Daniel Carter or Michael Reeves or Andrew Cole was watching. We didn't sleep, not after the headlights, not after the call, not after realizing someone had been inside the house while we were searching for answers. The envelope sat on the desk, between us, heavy, silent, waiting. At 4:12 a.m., I opened it. One sheet of paper. No greeting, no apology, just this. If you're reading this, it means I ran out of time. And if they're watching you, it means I was right. My throat tightened. Rachel stepped closer. My name is not Daniel Carter. We both froze. Daniel Carter died 11 years ago in a boating accident off the Florida coast. I took his identity 3 months later. Rachel shook her head. No, but the paper didn't shake in my hands. I didn't choose you by accident, Evelyn. The words felt surgical. Your inheritance, your clean financial background, your trust. You were stability. I needed stability. Needed, not wanted. Rachel grabbed the desk to steady herself. I was recruited in 2014. Not by criminals, by the government. We stared at each other. Government. Offshore development groups were laundering money through real estate expansions in Nevada, Georgia, and Texas. Shell companies, clean investors. I built identities to get close. Built. The 3 passports, the LLCs, the layered businesses. It wasn't random. It was architecture. Michael Reeves was the access point. Andrew Cole was the financial channel. Daniel Carter was the anchor. Anchor. That was me. Rachel whispered, "Is this real?" I didn't know. But the details, the specificity, it didn't read like delusion. It read like documentation. They never intended to shut it down. They intended to absorb it. When I realized that, I became expendable. The room felt colder. The investigators who came to you weren't private. They were internal. Internal. Not criminals, not auditors, something worse. If I disappear, it's because I chose to. If they contact you, deny everything. You were never part of this. Rachel's voice cracked. He used us, but not the way we thought. The final paragraph was handwritten. Different pressure. Different urgency. I didn't expect to care. That was my mistake. They will use you if they think you know anything. Burn the drive. Trust no one, not even the badge. The badge. We both stood there in silence, every assumption cracking. So what was real? Rachel asked finally. I looked around Magnolia, the kitchen he renovated, the anniversary trip photos, the nights he fell asleep on the couch, the way he made coffee exactly how I liked it. Maybe all of it, I said quietly, and that was worse. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number, I didn't hesitate. "Mrs. Carter," the same calm voice said. "You opened it." Not a question, a statement. My blood ran cold. "You're watching the house." A small pause. "Yes." Rachel's eyes filled with terror. "You're in danger," the voice continued. "Your husband compromised an operation that involved federal assets. We are attempting containment." Containment. Not protection. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means if he contacts you, you inform us immediately." "And if we don't," silence, "then that would be unwise." The call ended. Rachel backed away from me. "This is insane." No. It was organized. Too organized. If Daniel, or whatever his name was, had discovered corruption inside the operation, then he wasn't just running. He was hunted by people with credentials, authority, access. The missing hard drive. The envelope left intentionally. The warning calls. The headlights. This wasn't about exposing him. It was about controlling the narrative. Rachel looked at me. "What if he comes back?" I held her gaze. "He won't come back the way we knew him." Because if the letter was real, then every smile, every promise, every lie had layers beneath it. And if the letter wasn't real, then we were being manipulated by someone still 3 moves ahead. The sun started rising outside. Soft light spilling into a house built on borrowed names. Rachel's phone buzzed. She looked down and went pale. It was a text. From Daniel or Michael or Andrew. Just 3 words, "Check the news." We both turned toward the television. I grabbed the remote, turned it on. Breaking news banner. Nevada. A real estate development firm under federal investigation for laundering international funds. 2 arrests made overnight. 1 suspect still at large. Photo displayed. It was him, but not as Daniel, as Michael Reeves, wanted for questioning in connection to financial crimes and obstruction of a federal inquiry. Rachel whispered, "He's not undercover." No. He wasn't protected. He was exposed. But here was the part that froze me. The reporter added, "Sources indicate Reeves may possess documentation implicating senior officials." Implicating. This wasn't clean. This wasn't simple. This was a power struggle, and he had something they wanted back. My phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. Different tone this time. Short message. "They're lying. Don't trust them. I'm closer than you think." No name, but I knew. Rachel looked at me. "What do we do?" For the first time since this began, I understood the board. 2 sides, both dangerous, both capable of destroying us. And somewhere between them, a man who built 3 identities and maybe 1 real feeling. I turned off the television, looked at Rachel, and said the only thing that made sense anymore. "If they're hunting him, we need to find him first." We didn't call him back. We didn't respond. Because the moment you respond, you choose a side. Rachel paced the kitchen. I stood at the window. Every car that passed felt deliberate. Every shadow felt placed. "He's manipulating us," she said. Maybe. But the message was simple. Check the news. He wanted us to see something, to understand something. I replayed the broadcast in my head. Possessing documentation implicating senior officials. Not money, not fraud, officials. That changes everything. Rachel stopped pacing. "What if the letter was staged?" "It wasn't," I said too quickly. She looked at me carefully. "You're defending him?" I wasn't. I was calculating. There's a difference. We pulled the remaining files from the laptop, every transaction, every property, every signature. And this time we weren't looking for fraud. We were looking for leverage. At 9:43 a.m., we found it. Buried inside a shell company tied to Texas development permits. A payment chain. 5 transfers. All landing in a consulting firm based in D.C. The firm had 1 client. A political action committee. Rachel stared at the screen. "This isn't real." It was, and it was bigger than real estate. My phone buzzed again. Different number, local, I answered. No voice this time, just breathing, slow, measured, listening. "Stop calling," I said calmly. The breathing continued. Then, click, Rachel backed away from me. "They're tracking us." "No," I said. "They're waiting." Waiting for what? For him to reach out again, for us to panic, for us to choose wrong. The doorbell rang, sharp, sudden, too loud. We froze. Nobody had texted. Nobody had scheduled anything. Nobody should know we were here. The doorbell rang again, longer, more impatient. Rachel whispered, "Don't." But I was already walking. Slowly, quietly, I checked the side window first. Black SUV, government plates, 2 men at the door, suits, neutral expressions, not local police, not neighbors. I opened the door halfway. "Yes." The taller one showed a badge, federal. No smile. "Mrs. Carter, we need to ask you a few questions." Rachel stepped into view behind me. The second agent scanned the house interior. Quick, efficient, trained. "This won't take long," the first agent said. "It never does." Until it does, they didn't sit. They didn't relax. They didn't blink much either. "Has your husband contacted you since his disappearance?" No hesitation. "No," not technically a lie. He never used the name Daniel. The agent studied my face, micro-expressions. He was measuring truth. "If he does," he said carefully, "you need to understand the seriousness of the situation." "I do," I replied. He held my gaze longer than necessary. "Then you're not in trouble yet." Yet they left without searching, without pressing, which meant one thing: they already knew more than they said. The SUV didn't pull away immediately. It idled, like the headlights the night before, watching. Rachel turned on me the second the door closed. "You lied to them." "So did you." She stepped closer. "This isn't a game." "No," I said quietly. "It's survival." Her eyes changed, not fear, suspicion. "What if you're not telling me everything?" she asked. The question hung there, heavy, unavoidable, because the truth was there was something I hadn't told her, something small, something I wasn't sure mattered, until now. 3 weeks ago, before he disappeared, Daniel asked me a question, out of nowhere. "If something happened to me, would you believe what they say about me?" I laughed at the time. Told him he was being dramatic. He didn't laugh. He just watched me, like he was memorizing the answer. Rachel noticed the silence. "What?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I didn't know how much of her involvement was accidental. Her social security, her guarantor's signature, her connection to one of the Nevada properties. "What if you were closer to this than you think?" I asked softly, her face drained of color. "What does that mean?" It meant I wasn't sure anymore who was pulled in and who was planted. My phone vibrated again. Same unknown tone as before, short message. "They're dividing you. That's step 1. Don't let them." Rachel saw it. I didn't hide it. Her voice cracked. "Is that him?" "Yes." She closed her eyes and whispered, "We're going to die, aren't we?" No, that wasn't the fear. The real fear was worse. We weren't pieces on the board. We were leverage. And leverage only has value while it's alive. I looked at her, at the fear, at the doubt growing between us, at the invisible pressure tightening. "No," I said finally. "We're not going to die." Pause. "We're going to make them afraid." Rachel stared at me, and for the first time she didn't see a victim. Outside, the SUV finally pulled away. But across the street, a different car was parked now, engine off, windows tinted, and this time it hadn't been there before. He chose the location. Of course he did. An abandoned marina 40 minutes outside the city, closed for renovations. Seasonal, empty. The text came at 2:17 a.m., no greeting, no explanation, just coordinates. And one line, "Come alone. They're closer to you than you think." Rachel didn't want me to go, that was expected, but she didn't try to stop me, that was new. "You think he'll tell the truth?" she asked. I grabbed my keys. "I think he'll tell a version of it." The drive felt longer than 40 minutes. Every set of headlights behind me felt intentional. Every turn felt recorded. The marina was dark. No boats, no workers, no security lights. Just wind and water and silence. I stepped out of the car, cold air, salt, stillness. He was already there, leaning against a metal railing like he wasn't the most wanted man in 3 states. He looked the same. That was the worst part. Same posture, same calm, same eyes. But there was something different too. Less performance, more exhaustion. "You shouldn't have come," he said quietly. I didn't answer. I walked closer, stopped 10 feet away, close enough to see him, far enough to run. "You lied about everything." "No," he said. "I lied about my name." I let that sit. "Then the passports?" Operational. The shell companies, necessary. The marriage, pause, longer than the others. That wasn't operational. My chest tightened, but I didn't react. You used us, I said evenly. I used proximity, he corrected. That's worse. He didn't argue. They flipped the investigation, he continued. When I found internal transfers tied to elected officials, I reported it. And I became the liability. Wind moved across the water. Metal cables clinked softly against empty docks. You expect me to believe you're the hero. I expect you to survive. I studied him, every micro-expression, every blink, looking for cracks. Why involve Rachel? I asked. His jaw tightened. I didn't. That wasn't hesitation. That was certainty. Her name was added to a guarantor file 6 months after we closed on Nevada. I felt my pulse shift. What? I never touched that document. The world tilted slightly. Not dramatic, just enough. You're saying someone else did. I'm saying, he replied calmly, you were both placed deeper than I planned. Planned, that word again. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it. You're being monitored, he continued. The SUV was containment. The second vehicle is oversight. Oversight? Internal affairs doesn't trust field operations. Layers inside layers, watching watchers. Then why meet me? I asked. His eyes softened for half a second. Because they think you don't matter. That stung more than I expected. They're wrong. Silence, just water, wind, breathing. Do you have the documentation? I asked. Yes. Where? Safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one you get. I stepped closer. Now 5 feet away. You dragged us into something you couldn't control. His voice dropped. I was controlling it. And now he didn't answer. Headlights appeared in the distance. Far down the access road, moving slowly, he saw them too. They traced the signal. You said come alone. I did. The lights got closer, not speeding, confident. You need to leave, he said. You're not coming with me. I can't. Or you won't. Another pause. If I disappear with you, they confirm leverage. And if you stay, they confirm liability. I finally understood. He wasn't running to survive. He was staying to protect the evidence. Listen to me carefully, he said, voice steady. Precise. If anything happens to me, a release is triggered. My heart stopped. What kind of release? The kind that ends careers. The headlights were close now, too close. You set up a dead man's switch. Yes. Why tell me? Because if they pressure you, you need to know you're safer with it released. Safer with chaos. Safer with exposure. Safer with destruction. The vehicles split at the entrance. 2 directions. Encircling, you should hate me, he said quietly. I looked at him, really looked. I don't know what I feel, I admitted. And that was the most honest thing I'd said all week. He stepped back, into shadow. If they question you again, he added, tell them you believe I'm guilty. That's it. That's how you stay alive. The first vehicle reached the parking area, doors opening, silhouettes stepping out. I turned toward my car, hands steady. Breathing even, then I heard him say it, soft, almost lost in the wind. My name was Daniel. I didn't turn around, I didn't look back, I drove, didn't speed, didn't panic, didn't cry. Halfway home, my phone buzzed. Rachel. Her voice was shaking. They were here. My blood went cold. Who? Not the SUV. Pause. They had a warrant. For what? For me. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. They said my signature ties me to offshore transfers, she whispered. That's impossible. I know. But it wasn't impossible. It was design. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, the marina shrinking in the rearview mirror, agents surrounding him, Rachel being processed, the board rearranging. We weren't leverage anymore. We were targets. And somewhere between a dead man's switch and a federal arrest, the truth was about to detonate. Rachel didn't answer her phone, not once, not a text, not a whisper. I parked outside her apartment. The building looked empty, too quiet. The streetlights flickered like they knew something. The door was ajar. I froze, heart racing. Every instinct screaming. Inside, papers were scattered across the floor. Folders, documents, stamps and signatures I couldn't recognize. Everything tied to offshore accounts, and her laptop was gone. Then I heard it. A soft cough from the hallway. Rachel stepped out. Calm, composed, but her eyes wide, trembling, electric. They're here, she whispered. They took the warrant, but it's not over. I wanted to ask questions, to demand answers, but the words froze in my throat. Did you sign these? I finally asked. She shook her head. Not a single one. I was set up. They planned this long before we even knew his name. A pause, breathing heavy. Then she looked at me like she was weighing a decision. I tried to warn you, she said. But by the time you got Daniel, the dominoes had already fallen. The apartment shook, not literally, but the weight of everything hit like a tidal wave. You mean the dead man's switch? I asked. She nodded. Yes, once Daniel triggered it, every transaction, every file, every secret was in motion. And now they're coming for us. The phone buzzed, multiple notifications, unknown numbers, encrypted messages, emails flagged urgent. Every detail he'd warned us about was happening, simultaneously. We need a plan, I said, but Rachel just shook her head. No, we need to survive the chaos first, then we fight back. Outside, headlights appeared again, too many, moving fast, coordinated. They're not just investigators, Rachel said quietly. They're predators and we're the prey. I felt the air in my lungs tighten. Every shadow felt alive, every sound amplified. A car screeched, parked diagonally in front of her building. Two men stepped out. Suits, earpieces, precision in every movement. Rachel grabbed my hand. Don't think, just move. We ran up the fire escape. Down alleys, the city felt like a maze. Every corner held eyes. Minutes passed like hours. Breath ragged. Pulse erratic, and then a voice from behind. Rachel Thompson, step away from the fugitive. I turned. Two agents. Not the ones from the SUV. Different, harder, no hesitation. Rachel's grip on my hand tightened. I could feel her fear, but also a resolve. They know, she whispered. They've decrypted something. If they get the laptop, everything we know, everything Daniel worked for vanishes. I glanced at the skyline. The city lights blurred into streaks. Chaos unfolding. And we were right in the middle. Then Rachel did something I didn't expect. She released my hand. I can't let you get caught, she said. You're not prepared for this level. I'll buy you time. Before I could protest, she ran. Into the night. Into the swarm. Into the storm of consequences Daniel left behind. I stood frozen, heart pounding, mind screaming. And then the realization hit. She wasn't the victim we thought. She was a player. My phone buzzed again. Encrypted message. Check the car. Keys are under the mat. You'll need it. I ran, every step measured, every breath controlled. Every second mattered. The city around me shifted. Every passerby a potential threat. Every shadow hiding an agent, an informant, a trap. And then I understood. Daniel's plan didn't just protect him. It exposed everything. Tested everyone. And now it was our turn. A final pause, wind, breath, heartbeats. I got to the car, keys under the mat, door unlocked. I sat inside, locked the doors, started the engine. And that's when the notifications came, dozens of messages. Files sent, alerts triggered. The city alive with consequences. We were in it now, completely, no turning back. The city felt alive, but every sound, every movement carried danger. I drove in silence. Rachel was gone. The streets were empty, yet every corner seemed watched. Then a message came. No sender, no name, just a single line. You've been fooled, trust no one. I froze, heart hammering. Every instinct screaming I was about to step into a trap. I drove to Daniel's last safe house. The place looked abandoned. Windows broken, dust in the corners. Everything staged to look like chaos. Inside, a note pinned to the wall. By the time you read this, you'll know the truth. Don't trust Rachel. She's not the ally you think she is. My mind raced. Not Rachel, but who? And why? Then I heard the voice. Looking for answers, I turned. And there she was, Rachel, calm, smiling, almost too calm. I did what I had to, she said. Daniel's plan, it was never just about money. It was about testing loyalty. And you failed. Every word hit like ice. My stomach turned. She wasn't scared. She was in control. You think I was running from danger? She asked. No, I was running towards it, to see who would survive. To see who was worthy. My hands shook. Every part of me screamed betrayal. You and Daniel, I whispered. You set me up. Rachel tilted her head. Not set up, enlightened, you just didn't see the bigger picture. Daniel trusted me. And now so must you. The room felt smaller, every shadow a secret, every sound a trap. She walked closer, her eyes piercing. Check your messages, check the files. Everything you thought you knew is wrong. I opened my phone. Dozens of new files. Encrypted, labeled, organized. And then it hit me. The betrayal wasn't hers alone. It was everywhere. Friends, colleagues, even Daniel's closest allies, all part of a test, all part of a plan I didn't understand. Rachel smiled. Some lessons are learned the hard way. Some truths are only revealed in fire. A pause, deep breath, the weight of realization settling in. I looked at her. Why me? I asked. Why drag me into this? Because you matter, she replied. Because only those who survive the chaos deserve the truth. The city outside seemed quiet, deceptively quiet, as if it was holding its breath. Rachel handed me a folder, heavier than I expected. Inside, files detailing every betrayal, every secret, every lie. You need to decide, she said. Do you run, or do you face it all, every piece of it? A siren wailed in the distance, the first of many. And I realized this wasn't just survival. This was war, a game we were all forced to play. I clenched the folder, breath ragged, mind racing, and I knew nothing would ever be the same. I gripped the folder like my life depended on it, because in a way it did. Outside, the city pulsed with chaos. Sirens, shouting, engines, footsteps, all converging. I knew Rachel was watching, not helping, not threatening, watching. A notification pinged, encrypted from Daniel. It ends tonight. Follow the instructions exactly. Trust no one. My stomach twisted. Daniel, dead or alive, or just another piece in his game. Rachel stepped beside me. Her calm was unnerving. Are you ready? I nodded. Not because I felt ready, because I had no choice. The instructions led me to an abandoned warehouse. Shadows clung to the walls. The air smelled of rust and danger. Inside, I saw them. Daniel. Alive, bloodied, but unbroken, he smiled. Didn't think you'd make it this far, did you? I swallowed. What is all this? Why the games? Daniel's eyes burned. Because truth is rarely given, it's earned. And you needed to see it all. Rachel stepped forward. Everything you believed, lies. Every betrayal, every secret was the test. And now you either take control or fall like the rest. A pause, breathing ragged. The tension was electric. Daniel handed me a USB. Small, unassuming, deadly. Plug this into a safe system. Everything we've uncovered, financial crimes, betrayals, hidden alliances, it all goes public. And there's no turning back. I hesitated. One choice could ruin lives. One choice could save some. Rachel's voice cut through the silence. Do it, or everything Daniel built will die with him. I plugged it in. Files streamed onto the system. Evidence, truth, chaos. Outside, sirens grew louder. Agents, predators, criminals, all converging. Daniel turned to me. You've done it. Now survive the aftermath. That's the real test. Rachel placed a hand on my shoulder. This isn't over, but you've learned something no one else will. Trust is earned, loyalty tested, and power revealed. Suddenly, the warehouse doors burst open. Light flooded in, silhouettes everywhere. I braced myself. But Daniel and Rachel vanished into the chaos. Gone. I stood alone, the folder in my hands, the truth in my mind. And the city alive with consequences. For the first time, I understood. Life is messy, people lie, trust is rare. And only those who face the storms survive it. I took a deep breath. The sirens faded. The night calmed. And in that moment, I realized the game was never about winning. It was about surviving, learning, and never trusting the obvious. The folder still in my hands, I stepped outside. The city stretching before me, full of secrets, lies, and power, and I knew nothing would ever be the same again.